Well, hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to this Autodesk Manufacturing webinar. My name's Clinton, and it's my pleasure to be your host today as we take a look at the latest release of Autodesk Fusion 360 with PowerMill, that being release 2023.1. Now, we have a lot to get through in the next 20 minutes or so let's make a start. Now, before we get going, I just want to display our standard safe harbor statement. While today's presentation is focused on functionality that will be included in the release of PowerMill, I may mention ongoing development work that could be included in future releases. Where possible, I'll make this clear, but please note that things can change, meaning features may be delayed, possibly indefinitely. You should take this into account when making your purchasing decisions. Our agenda today is as follows. We'll provide a quick overview of the release before going into more detail about the latest updates. Once done, we'll spend a few minutes explaining how you can learn more and how you'll be able to download this version for yourself. Finally, if you're completely new to PowerMill, we'll provide a little more guidance on how you can learn more and try PowerMill for yourself completely free for 30 days. Now, PowerMill 2023.1 will be released starting the 5th of December 2022. Our releases will start rolling out from that point. As with previous releases, eligible customers with an active subscription or maintenance agreement will be able to access this update through the Autodesk account starting on this date. Now, we'll go into a little more detail about downloading this version later in this presentation, so stick around for more advice. Now, while this isn't a major release by name, it most certainly is a major release in terms of capabilities. In addition to the usual focus on performance, quality and reliability, this release includes two completely new machining strategies and many more enhancements too. Now, let's continue by reviewing some of the major highlights in this release. And I've picked out 4 of my personal favourites here, including a completely new rest finishing strategy that can find and remove unmachined stock with high levels of accuracy and consistency than anything else in PowerMill, a completely new incline flat finishing strategy that can automate the machining of planar faces on parts using 5-axis machining, improvements to automatic collision avoidance resulting in more consistent tool axis tilting and better quality parts, enhancements to setups meaning connection moves can now be defined and managed across multiple toolpaths, as well as a number of small but significant speed ups that should reduce the time taken to complete many common programming tasks, plus the usual selection of fixes and usability improvements too. Now, the first update to discuss is that first completely new machining strategy called rest finishing. Now, this combines the strengths of 3 existing options already inside PowerMill, these being automatic corner finishing, multi-pencil finishing and the use of rest boundaries. Now, these all have strengths. Corner finishing provides independent controls over the machining of steep and shallow areas of your parts. Pencil finishing provides the ability to machine stock using multiple passes that flow and follow the shape of the stock being machined. And rest boundaries provide the most accurate option for detecting unmachined stock. Now, if you've used these strategies, you'll appreciate the positives that they offer, but you may also be aware of some weaknesses too. Corner finishing can occasionally fail to identify all areas of unmachined stock. Often this happens at the ends of fillets where they fade out to nothing, as we can see in the example in the top left corner of the screen. Pencil and multi-pencil finishing can suffer from the same limitation, but they can also create toolpaths that over-machine in other areas. And while rest boundaries are certainly more accurate at detecting stock, there really isn't a toolpath that can always be used to machine all corners and to remove that stock away. So whilst it's accurate, it's not the perfect solution. And that's the issue here. Regardless of whether you use corner finishing, multi-pencil finishing or rest boundaries, you don't know which one to use based on your specific model that you're trying to machine. Now, the new rest finishing strategy fixes this. It identifies rest areas from a reference tool in the same way that PowerMill rest boundaries work. Then it machines these areas using a steep and shallow type of toolpath with a range of options for both steep and shallow areas. Crucially, this new strategy can be used with 5-axis settings, including automatic collision avoidance. Now, rest finishing typically identifies unmachined stock more accurately and removes it with higher quality toolpaths, resulting in a better quality surface finish. And all of this means a single automated toolpath reduces the amount of CAM programming that's needed and reduces the likelihood of you having to use manual polishing after your parts have been completed. Now, the next improvement in PowerMill 2023.1 is another completely new machining strategy, and this is aimed at simplifying the machining of planar surfaces, specifically in cases where your part contains multiple flat faces all inclined at different angles, and where you wish to use the bottom of a flat-ended tool like an end mill or a tip radius cutter to machine them. Now, prior to this new strategy, programming these compound flat faces would take a great deal of time and effort, as you would need to create separate work planes and toolpaths for each planar region. As the name suggests, this new strategy automates the machining of flat surfaces in both 3 and 5-axis machining. It can detect flats in all orientations using a user-defined angular range, and then machines them using either a raster or offset style toolpath. Now, it's worth noting that the toolpath itself will consist of 3-axis cutting moves joined together with a series of simultaneous 5-axis connection moves. As a result, these toolpaths will probably not be suitable if you're using a 3+2 CNC machine, i.e. one that can't do simultaneous 5-axis motion. But note, we're actively working on a long-term solution for this as well. Now, the most obvious benefit here is faster CAM programming times, simply because this new strategy can handle all of the flat surfaces in a single go, removing the need for you to create separate toolpaths and work planes for each separate region. Now, before we move on to the next big feature inside PowerMill, I wanted to take a moment to mention a plugin that provides similar benefits to that inclined flat finishing strategy we just looked at, but with the added difference of it being more appropriate for those of you using 3+2 machines. So again, machines that don't have the ability to do simultaneous 5-axis motion. Now, this particular plugin has been developed by our North American sales team, meaning it's not officially part of the PowerMill product and so isn't covered by the same level of development, support and maintenance. So bear that in mind. Even so, the plugin is built on the same underlying functionality that we just saw, meaning that it uses the same code and can find the same flat surfaces and machine them in a similar way. However, there are a number of crucial differences. Now, the plugin works in a slightly different way to the previous inclined flat finishing toolpath, and it requires the selection of another predefined toolpath in the active PowerMill project. The process works by cloning that toolpath and applying it to all the flat surfaces that it identifies. Now, the beauty of this is that the template toolpath allows you to define the machining strategy you want to use, such as raster or offset, but it's also able to offer you more advanced control options, like being able to apply extended approach and retract movements. The plugin then creates multiple work planes and toolpaths to machine each of the flat regions that you've asked it to identify, and these can then be exported in one or more NC programs and run on your 3+2 machines. Clearly, the benefit here is the same as inclined flat machining, except that you now have the ability to run these programs on 3+2 machines. Now, should you want to learn more about the plugin or download it and use it yourself, then please visit the PowerMill forum and just search for new plugin for 3+2 flat finishing, and you'll be able to read more and download the installer for yourself. Alternatively, we'll provide a link to that forum in the description below, and if you have access to this PowerPoint deck, you'll be able to click on the red button that you see in the bottom right hand corner. Now, continuing work that was first included in PowerMill 2023.0, this latest update includes more work to improve the consistency and reliability of 5-axis automatic collision avoidance. Now, first off, PowerMill should now produce toolpaths with greater consistency of the tilt solution on neighbouring passes. For example, if you're using constant Z to machine the sidewalls of a pocket, you'll notice that each toolpath pass will have similar tool axis tilt solutions to the neighbouring paths around it. Next, the tool axis solution on symmetric parts should be also noticeably improved. Now we can see an example of this on screen now. The top image shows a simple constant Z toolpath machining an open pocket in PowerMill 2023.0. Note the highlighted area in red where we can see a definite change in shape of the toolpath. And this represents a change in the tool axis tilting, and note that it's not symmetrical on both sides of this part. Now, while the toolpath is definitely safe, it doesn't gouge, this change in tool axis will change the cutting conditions and the forces in the cutter push-off, increasing the likelihood of different levels of surface finish being achieved. Compare this with the image at the bottom of the screen. This shows the same toolpath calculated with PowerMill 2023.1. Note the shape of the toolpath on both left and right hand sides of the pocket is the same, meaning the same level of tool axis tilting, more consistent levels of surface finish. Ultimately, this improvement should generate more consistent tool axis tilting, meaning better controlled cutting forces and the associated problems connected with cutter push-off, tool run-out and so on. This gives you more control and increases the likelihood of achieving a higher level of surface finish and removing the need for manual polishing. Our next area of improvement relates to machining setups. First added in PowerMill 2019, these help simplify CAM programming by allowing CAD models, fixtures, datums and other common settings to be centrally defined and managed and applied to all toolpaths contained within the setup. The release of PowerMill 2023.1 sees numerous additional improvements, including setups now allow safety heights to be defined. By this I mean Safe Z and Start Z. These can be automatically applied to all toolpaths created within the setup. What's really nice is that changing the safety height settings will cause any toolpaths contained within the setup to automatically be updated too. Think of the time savings that this offers. Now it's worth noting that you can still update individual toolpaths if you need to. Another minor point, when we say connection moves, we're talking specifically about movements to Safe Z and Start Z, not the individual moves between connections within the toolpaths. Now, this is something we're continuing to work on, so watch this space for future updates. Now, another major enhancement to setup sees a change in the behaviour if a toolpath is dragged into or out of a machining setup. In this case, the toolpath will be invalidated. Now, and this is because we recognise that there's likely to be changes in the settings associated with clamps and stock. And this change triggers a need for you to recalculate that toolpath. Now we're continuing to work on improving machining setups for future releases. Our goal, as ever, is to use setups to save you even more CAM programming time and effort and helping you to reduce the likelihood of human errors creeping into your programming tasks. Now, in addition to all of the updates we've just talked about, we've continued to work on improving the speed and performance of many commonly used commands. Some of the highlights include speeding up toolpaths that explicitly process flats, i.e. they machine down to flats or they ignore flat surfaces. This particular enhancement should mean faster calculation times for toolpaths like flat finishing or area clearance toolpaths. Next, we've sped up post-processing of NC programs, and in particular NC programs that contain hundreds of toolpaths. This should be much faster in PowerMill 2023.1. In one particular customer account, the time taken to process a single NC program that contained more than 1,600 separate toolpaths reduced from 8 hours to just under 23 minutes. Now that's a saving well in excess of 90%. And we're not done, we're continuing to work on this area and hope to provide further improvements in future releases. Next, we've sped up the PowerMill browser. Our team has optimized the behavior of the browser, meaning the time taken to drag large numbers of entities from one place to another should be much faster still. Now, in one test, the time taken to drag 168 toolpaths from one area of the browser to another reduced from a total of 2 minutes to 8 seconds, a saving of well over 90%. Finally, we've made it faster to save projects that contain many work planes. Our team has optimized this part of the PowerMill process, particularly focused on those projects with many work planes, which is a common occurrence. In one of our internal tests, a project that contained more than 10,000 work planes was saved. In the previous release of PowerMill, the time taken to save took 15 minutes, and in this latest release, it took under 6 minutes, a saving of 60%. And again, we're not done. We continue to look at areas to make that faster still. Now, put simply, these improvements all reduce the time that you wait for PowerMill to complete tasks, meaning you can either start machining sooner or use that extra time to explore alternative toolpaths, to refine toolpaths to make better quality machined parts. Now, obviously, the time savings that you achieve will very much vary based on the parts that you're machining, the strategies you're using, and the specification of your PC. Now, PowerMill 2023.1 includes a raft of other notable enhancements. Let's run through some of them now. This is not all of them by any means, but this is just like the final few golden nuggets that we've included in this release. We've improved flat machining to reduce the likelihood of toolpath passes being created that leave a thin whisper of material that can damage tools when it's removed. Likewise, any boundaries that are used by toolpaths within a setup now correctly respect the clamped settings associated with that setup, something that wasn't happening with previous versions. The toolpath strategy dialog has been improved to reduce the likelihood of it appearing to hang when you press the calculate button. To improve PowerMill security, when you access a remote path and it is blocked, the information dialog box now tells you more information about what happened and explains what you can do next. And still on the subject of security, it's now possible to change the behavior of MTD files so that remote paths are no longer blocked if you've got restrict remote paths switched off. And as with previous releases, the full release notes can be accessed from within PowerMill's help menu. Just literally install PowerMill, click the F1 keyboard button, and you'll get to access all of this information and so much more detail than we're able to provide in this presentation today. Okay, so now we've provided an overview. Let's just summarize. The major highlights in PowerMill 2023.1 include a completely new rest finishing strategy that finds and removes unmachined stock with high levels of accuracy and consistency, a completely new incline flat finishing strategy that can automate the machining of planar faces using 5-axis machining, improvements to automatic collision avoidance resulting in more consistent tool axis tilting on symmetrical parts, enhancements to setups allowing connection moves to be defined and managed across multiple toolpaths, as well as a number of small but important speed ups that should reduce the time taken to complete many common programming tasks, plus the usual selection of fixes and usability improvements that we mentioned earlier on today. Okay, so now we've reviewed the release. Let's see how you can learn more and how you can actually download PowerMill and start using it yourself. Now, first options, if you want to access a whole load of tutorials that take you step by step through the process of using these new features, then I recommend that you go onto YouTube, simply search for PowerMill 2023, and you'll get to see loads of tutorial videos that we created for this particular release, as well as the previous 2023.0 update. Alternatively, if you'd like to get even more detailed information about these particular updates, then visit the online help site. Do this in a number of ways. You can either use the URL that you see in the bottom right hand corner of the screen, or install PowerMill and click the F1 key, and that will take you to the same site. Here you'll be able to access a load of tutorials, datasets, release notes, lists of known issues, as well as videos to help you get started with essential skills to make better use of PowerMill for yourself. And interestingly, many of the assets that we've talked about here are available in multiple languages, not just English alone. Now, what if you want to download PowerMill? Where can you get it from and when? Well, existing customers should start to receive the latest updates automatically starting on the 5th of December 2022. This happens in one of two ways, either by using the Autodesk desktop app or by logging into your Autodesk account at manage.autodesk.com. To use the desktop app, simply click on the Autodesk desktop app icon that you see in the Windows taskbar, generally down by the clock in the bottom right hand corner of your screen. Once the app launches, simply log in and you'll see a list of your Autodesk subscriptions. Pick the product that you'd like to install, in this case PowerMill 2023.1, then click download, update, allow the download to happen, and then follow the instructions to install. Alternatively, log into your Autodesk account online at manage.autodesk.com. Once you've logged in with your business details, you can see a list of your purchased products and subscriptions. As before, select the product that you're interested in and then click on the option to install to begin the installation process. And once the software is installed, simply follow the prompts until PowerMill is completely installed and updated, and then use the icon on screen to launch PowerMill and get going. But what if you're new to PowerMill and you've never used PowerMill before? What about you? Where can you learn more? Well, if you're completely new to PowerMill and would like to know more about its capabilities or its pricing, then please visit the PowerMill Product Center on autodesk.com/PowerMill. You can watch handy videos to learn more about PowerMill's capabilities, its feature sets, as well as reading informative stories about our most successful customers. Now, we also offer a 30-day free trial of Fusion 360 with PowerMill Ultimate. This trial provides access to everything PowerMill has to offer, including the full suite of 3 and 5-axis CAM programming tools and the ability to output 3-axis machining NC data using a number of standard generic 3-axis post processors. Alternatively, you can use this same website to connect with our team of manufacturing specialists and take advantage of a free, no obligations business evaluation. We can review your biggest challenges, your headaches, and identify the #1 best Autodesk manufacturing solution for you. And with that, we come to the end of our time together. Thank you so much for sparing the time to join me today. I hope you found it both informative and educational. If you're watching this video on catch up, then thank you for taking the time. Please feel free to share this video with your friends and colleagues and anyone else who you feel would benefit from learning about this latest release of Fusion 360 with PowerMill. And with that, thank you once more. Have a great day, and I'll see you again next time.